If you're figuring out how to actually integrate AI, improve your platform, or make dev experience better for your team, InfoQ Dev Summit Boston 2025 might be worth checking out. It's 2 days in June, focused on the real-world side of adopting these technologies. You'll hear from senior engineers who've already been through it, what worked, what didn't, and what they'd do differently. It's built for teams who need to move now, not just stay inspired. Join us this June 9 to 10. Learn more at devsummit.infoq.com.
Good day, folks. This is Shane Hastie for the InfoQ Engineering Culture Podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with John Gesimondo. John, welcome. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, John, you were recently a QCon speaker, but before we get into that, tell us a little bit, who's John?
Sure. So I'm John. I've been a software engineer for quite a while now. I guess about 15 years. My undergrad was actually in business. I'm self-taught engineer. But with enough time and diligence, you can do anything, you know. I've been working at Netflix for the last 6 years, doing various things, mostly internal tools. And this will be relevant later, but I have ADHD and definitely some traits of autism. And I'm super keen on software in the tooling space. And then I really enjoy optimizing life and especially thinking about mental health and how that touches on technology. So
Your talk, Achieving Sustainable Mental Peace at Work, with the twist, using Gen AI.
Yeah.
What brought that about?
Well, kind of organic. I basically just started using generative AI for basically everything in my life. There's people at work that make fun of me for this. It's actually kind of hilarious, but I've in the early days tried to apply Gen AI to everything I could possibly think of, just as a pure explorer, right? When things are brand new, it's nice to know what they're capable of. So I really pushed to the limits, and I found quite a lot of sticky areas with a lot of value that were actually in this kind of work adjacent, work support, I guess, space. Maybe you could call it the socio side of socio-technical, right? So there's been a lot there that has really helped me out at work. And so, yeah, try to turn it into a framework and give it as a talk.
Mhm. So let's dig in first to you've been using that to support the socio side of the socio-technical systems. Why is mental health such a challenge for us in the software engineering space?
Oh man. Yeah. So software is just really complicated, the way that it's actually made. And then it's obviously also technically challenging. There's a lot of needs being managed and a lot of communication and organization. And then I find that there's a temporal nature of everything that really messes with it, right? So if you can manage to get the usual corporate stuff, let's say compared to a non-engineering situation in a corporation, it's already hard. There's a lot of organizing. You have cross-functional difficulty, aligning goals and all this type of stuff. But then with software, you have this added element of the temporal nature of why are things the way they are? Who knows actually how this software works? Why did this person make this decision? Oh, they don't work here anymore. And that creates a whole other aspect of things that makes it impossible to really like keep things structured and predictable and on time. And you've also got like incidents that happen. You have support rotation. You have this need to focus, but then at the same time, there's so much work that's going to interrupt you by the nature of how this whole thing works. So quite a lot of forces going on here, and most of them don't have good answers. And so that leaves you with difficulty.
So you said you came up with a framework. What is the framework?
So the concept is that there were trying to get to is sustainable mental peace, which I call basically a steadfast calm while you're in the middle of work chaos. If we accept that work chaos is inevitable based on the reasons we just gave, then there's not much you can do to control the environment permanently. So therefore, you have to take matters into your own hands to make sure that you can deal with living in that environment in a peaceful way, right? And so that's where the framework comes in. The framework is specifically limited to stuff that where you can use generative AI, since that was the topic of the talk. And so the way that I framed it is starting from the most unstable is basically having tools to recover quickly from emotional difficulty. And then next up is getting unstuck when you're stuck. And then the next is to enhance your planning and communication skills, because proper planning and proper proactive communication can save you so much of the interruptions I was just mentioning. And structure often in this area gives you a sense of calm. And so that's very helpful. Then after that, now we're in a state that's more stable, you want to try to add more time doing the things that you intrinsically enjoy and attempt to sort of shortcut the things that aren't really bringing you any personal value, which we now have some tools to do. And then lastly, try to do some divergent thinking to keep things interesting and to see opportunities and to have some fun sometimes.
We maybe work through the different stages. So
Sure.
if we start, it feels to me almost like a Maslow hierarchy pyramid.
Yeah.
If we start at that base, recovering quickly from emotional difficulties, that's just the stereotypical engineer is considered not to have emotions, but of course we're all emotional beings and do respond. So how do we recover quickly?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I can group the first two. So recovering from emotions and overcoming stuck points. I think they're very similar. They're both often emotional in nature. And when I say recover from emotions, I'm thinking a more acute situation, like some kind of trigger, big or small, or sitting in a room with someone that you really don't like, or something. Things happen, and it's just creates these unstable mental states. And for being stuck, it's a milder version, but it's as practically important. So how do you do this? For in either case, basically, we're looking at like a AI therapy / AI coach kind of model. Um, with the recover from emotions, I recommend using prompts that actually mention some therapy techniques. So like using CBT technique or using IFS, which is internal family systems, can sometimes help, especially if the person using this already goes to therapy. This is like extra helpful because it's kind of like having the tools that your therapist may have already gone over with you available to you at any time, and you don't have to run the whole thing yourself. You're still having that interaction, which really helps open up. And for overcoming stuck points, it's a blend. It's like sometimes you need a coach, which AI, again, similarly, you can just kind of prompt in a way to ask, be my coach, help me through this, get me back to taking action. But in other times, like it can start the work for you, right? Sometimes you're stuck because you have like blank page syndrome, for instance. And you don't have to deal with that anymore. You can generate a crappy draft that you hate, but at least you can be an editor now instead of a person staring at a blank screen. And so I think those two, you're looking at, yeah, using the AI as kind of a coach / therapist.
And then moving into the next level, the planning and communication, getting better at that.
So in this case, now you're looking at, again, a mix. I guess in this one, you're looking at actually doing things in the standard way. And I think that this one touches on the neurodivergence themes a lot, because this is where, at least in my experience, as someone with ADHD, my thoughts are very scattered. And so actually getting them into a structure that other people understand is not a free exercise. And now with co-pilots and such, that exercise can be actually fairly close to free, I would say. You know, dumping a bunch of bullet points and making sure that I covered everything and asking for a review and to expand the set of points to a proposed audience. Like if I were this type of person, what would I say? If you were that type of person, what would you say? Agreeing on the content and then refactoring, put it in programming terms, the whole thing into kind of exactly the way that the target audience would expect to see it. And you can even get that down to like quite local, giving an example in a prompt in this case is super helpful for like structure, tone, language. So yeah, as much as I love creativity as a neurodivergent person, when it comes to planning and communication, like the less creative the end result is, the more buttoned up and structured and follows what people expect it is, the less people will ask you questions and interrupt you later. And so, there's a reason for these things. And at least in my experience, the way I'm using this is kind of like as a shim. I call it like the neurodivergent planning shim. So you're just kind of taking away the code switching that I would have to do to write this myself, and delegating that work to the AI.
But it starts, of course, with your knowledge, what you're providing it.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the fun part,
Yeah.
at least for me, right? Yeah, and the back and forth in that middle process when it's about kind of agreeing, is this the right content? It's really fun. And asking different personas and, what would this person say? What would that person say? It's a lot more efficient than actually asking those people, which of course we'll do anyway later. But it's kind of a nice like creative brainstorming at the beginning. And then just like speed run me through the structuring part, because my brain and structure, not a natural fit, I will say. So for the add time and flow bit, this is all about like each of us have different parts of engineering that we like to do the most. And even when you look within what I'll call, I guess, the core loop of engineering, of actually like writing code and testing it, documenting it, um, and getting feedback and all of this stuff. Even within that process, there's a lot of preferences. Even within writing the code, there are preferences. Some people like to do more theoretical stuff. Other people like to do the structuring and architecture and system design. So I think that with the flow aspect here, what you're hoping to do is spend more time on the parts you really like and less time on the other parts. And especially don't get interrupted. And previously, before AI was around, we all had to go to Stack Overflow and read through all kinds of different correct and incorrect answers for our problems. And when you have to do that in the middle of a working session, it kind of takes you out of the flow of everything. Now with co-pilots, we often get that information at the snap of a finger. And so that's already helpful. But on top of that, I recommend, tuning your overall like time spent coding to be tuned towards the areas that you really deeply enjoy, that feel immersive for you, and do that using any latest frontier tooling that you can find. The cool thing is that this is currently where the frontier moves the fastest, is in the Copilot space. And so this one's super fun to keep up to date on.
And then divergent thinking.
Yeah. Divergent thinking is really interesting. I think this is a strength of neurodivergent people. I mean, there's a reason why divergent is in the name. But in a sense, it's interesting because this whole framework is kind of helping neurodivergent people and others. But for neurodivergent people, it helps them be a little more neurotypical for less cost. But in this case, this is the flip, right? This is like help neurotypicals be more neurodivergent. Um, and yeah, it's funny. My story is I'm looking for a place to live, and I was considering like different suburbs or back to San Francisco and the city, and I just was kind of stuck in there's just trade-offs everywhere, and like nothing's capturing my attention. And sometimes when I'm in this situation, including at work, the answer is like zoom out and get a little more divergent with the thinking. And in this case, I asked ChatGPT for some ideas of, I asked it for some housing ideas. It gave me a normal list. And then I asked it, get a little more divergent with this list. And it came up with some really funny stuff. So one of them is the tethered air home. This is a living pod suspended from cables between skyscrapers or cliffs or large trees. So nice hammock-like structure, could be retractable and can retract to ground level when needed. Not bad. There's one that was really funny, which was a distributed home network. So instead of one location, your home is spread across multiple cities, and it's cloud connected lockers store your essentials, minimizing the need for luggage. Uh, o- okay, I don't think that's how the cloud works. I don't think that's how physical systems work, but sounds good. Anyway, it really got me like very unstuck. Like now my mind is kind of open to, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's just that's what happens, when you do creative thinking. It just kind of got that problem a little bit, shaken up into some new directions. So you can do that at work, and I think especially when you look at career or you look at people being technical leaders, like you want to spend some time thinking about what could be, and sometimes these crazy ideas turn into spark some actual practical ideas. So it's a fun process.
As a neurodivergent person, what has your journey been, and how has the environment supported or inhibited you?
Hmm. Well, I didn't know I was neurodivergent until during COVID. So there's, I guess, two eras of this journey, unaware and the aware stage. I think the only time that being unaware was blissful was certain parts of school. I actually like am a very, very curious person. So whenever I was like interested in the topic that was in that class, I did quite well. It was miserable when I wasn't interested, but that didn't happen that often, luckily for me. So that was, I will call, the mostly blissful unaware period. Where it was no longer blissful is when I started working. Um, I think the further I've gone in my career, the more difficult it's been, to be honest. Um, as a junior who's just expected to learn all the time, it's sort of school-like. It's somewhat structured depending on the environment. My environment was very structured, so that was great. During mid-career, uh, there's a lot of learning to be done still, and a little bit more confidence, I think, in your abilities, and you start to get to know your strengths. Something that helps. And there's kind of like this linear-ish sense of learning that it's clear that you're getting smarter and better at this job. Well, even if you just look at like a maybe 2-week basis, even within a sprint, you're like, oh, wow, that was hard. Now I could do it again much faster. It's great. And then I think it gets a little difficult after that. As a senior, it's like the structure lines start to blur. And I think this is especially true at Netflix, but I'm sure it's true of many places. But the structure starts to decrease, and as you get even further past that, you're kind of expected to add some structure for the less tenured folks. And so this is where I think the the burden of planning and communicating and structuring things in ways that other people can understand, uh, and being able to manage. I don't have an answer for this one, but being able to manage the the maker schedule and the manager schedule getting mixed in your calendar is brutal when you have ADHD. And so I think this is where like the rigor of my systems has had to increase a lot lately because of pursuing being a technical leader. And yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people they just wouldn't. But I think in good and bad ways, my achiever side is stronger than my than my neurodivergent side is suffering. So that means build the tools, learn the processes, add the rigor to the systems so I can and rely on AI so that I can have my sustainable mental peace and be able to, achieve what I'm looking to achieve.
So you said you got a full recognition during COVID. What difference has that made for you?
Yeah, it helps and it hurts. I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about finding out that you're neurodivergent later in life. But I think in a practical way, for me, it's mostly been beneficial because you really have to understand that you experience things differently than the people around you to get to some point that you can do something about it. If you don't know that, then it feels like the world is gaslighting you all the time. Like someone proposes a system like, oh, just use a task list to organize your tasks. And like that system doesn't quite work for you. Well, if you don't know that you have ADHD, then it just makes you feel like, oh, something's wrong with me, or I'm lazy, or I didn't try hard enough. But if you do know you have ADHD, then you know that you should check, like, is this an ADHD problem or is it a me problem? And you'll find out in this example that it's an ADHD problem. So you just find an alternative, or you give yourself extra care and patience on the journey of trying to figure out how that works. Usually the find a workaround or find support tends to work better. But yeah, and definitely need patience either way. But yeah, without that lens, I mean, you have to know. I guess I often see this analogy with glasses, right? It's like if you don't know that your vision is bad, and then someone's talking to you about something that's a little too far away and you can't see it, but you don't know, then it's like, what do you don't have anything to work with there. It's like it's a crazy feeling. Like, what are they talking about? Should I say I don't understand what they're talking about? Or because they sound pretty confident about it, everyone else knows what they're talking about. And then it's like, okay, now I wear glasses. Okay, great. Well, now I know that if I'm not wearing my glasses, then that's the problem. I can't see the thing because I don't have my glasses on, right? So it just gives you this like sense of certainty, even though like that doesn't fix the problem, but it does make you feel better about it. You understand the problem. And then you can start the road, I think, from there of like looking for solutions. I shouldn't even say solutions. I think that's a little unfair. There's no solution per se, and there's no, yeah, we don't have to go fully down that road, but no need to solve the problem. But you do need to adapt if you want to work with a majority neurotypical people at work, which is usually the case.
Thank you for that. Good insights there. We swing back around to flow. You mentioned vibe coding when we were chatting earlier. What's it like, and how do you get into that and the swing of that today?
Yeah. Yeah, vibe coding is so fun. Sometimes. So vibe coding, we'll say is if you take if for those that are not familiar, I think most engineers know about copilots, like GitHub Copilot, for instance, been around for a while. But the latest frontier of this is to have an agent-based copilot. So you're giving it one instruction and it can go do an entire loop of work of many different back and forth prompts. And you can either, approve each step. Oh, I want to write to this file, accept. I want to write a test now, accept. Or you can just click the auto approve and you can just sit back and watch and hope for the best. And so this is what we call vibe coding in the AI developer community. And Yeah, it's a fun time. If for those listening that haven't tried it, even managers, like, please try it because it is probably one of the most exciting yet jarring experiences I've had in a while, and I hear that from others as well. The jarring part is just like it's the closest you get to that. Are we still gonna be having jobs, in the next year? But it's just I don't know. It's a mind blowing experience. It really flips everything that you think you know about what's difficult, what's easy, how I'm gonna do my work from now on. When should I use this? What is it good at? But let me tell you, on the other side of it, it's so hard to abstract any actual lessons from these experiences. What is it good at? You just try and you find out. And you're either really delighted or you're basically trying to pair with a undereducated intern. One of those two, and you don't know until you try.
And lean into the unknown and experience the flow.
Totally, totally. I think I see a lot of people. I guess we could combine this with the divergent thinking as well, because that allows you, if you're coming up with what you think are crazy ideas and they're in the software space, it is easier than ever to make a prototype through vibe coding, especially that because, I think the big open question is like, what kind of code quality are we making for the maintainers of all this stuff? But if you want to just play around and make a inspirational prototype of something, it's never been easier. Just open up your favorite vibe coding copilot and pray.
The tester in me shudders.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
John, a lot of great insights here and some really interesting stuff. If people do want to continue the conversation, where can they find you?
I think LinkedIn would probably be best. My username on there is Mondo. And I'm occasionally active on Twitter as well, or X, and that's also at Mondo. I'd go with that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.